Our businessman turned politician Herman Mashaba has added his voice to the vaccine rollout debate. The Action SA leader has also lambasted the chaotic scenes at borders linking South Africa and the rest of the continent. And he says this is a clear indication of a total collapse of government. Mashaba has also cautioned against a repeat of the mistakes of the early 2000s when the country was battling with HIV/AIDS. He joins us live now to talk about this. Mr. Mashaba, good evening. I hope you can hear me at this stage. Part of what you've written, you've written extensively about your criticism of this vaccine rollout plan. But one of the things that you then say is that you believe there were some elements of government's handling of the pandemic which were better than some so-called first world nations. Which are these?
Well, I think, thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity. I think the initial lockdown, right at the beginning of this pandemic, I think was a welcome step by the president. Unfortunately, I think we embraced it as South Africans, hoping that the reason for the lockdown was for government to prepare our health facilities for the pandemic. Unfortunately, we were let down because here we are, our hospitals are in a state worse than actually before this pandemic actually hit our shores.
And when you then look at, and you know, some of the questions that have arisen since we were taken through the rollout plan of this particular vaccine, one of those has been around the non-disclosure agreements that have been signed, and there's still not a lot of information forthcoming here as to who is, you know, who are they serving? What do you make of that?
In fact, Bongi, this is actually one of the major issues and concerns I have as a South African. At a time when this government over the last 26 years has dismally failed us at every turn over the last 26 years, really very few, or if any, or we can really applaud our government for service delivery and saving South Africa. For them at a time when South Africans are crying out for vaccine, majority of South Africans, where the entire world is really focusing their energies on getting the vaccines for their citizens. Countries, some of them even actually much poorer than South Africa, focusing on the vaccination of their people. Our country, our government right now can tell us about the confidentiality. This is the time President Cyril Ramaphosa has to take the South Africans into confidence in terms of these negotiations. Negotiations on the vaccine has to be a transparent process where South Africans can actually trust what the government is doing. For them to really talk about confidentiality, what is confidential about this? Our people are dying in hospitals. Our people are dying in their homes. There is no time for confidentiality. This is the time for any responsible government to take their citizens into confidence.
You are saying that medical aid schemes should also get into the picture here, but they themselves have been the subject of much scrutiny for quite some time now. There's been issues of discrimination. There's been issues of overpricing. What then is supposed to be their role here?
I think, Bongi, if you look at what is happening in our country right now with the medical aid schemes, the amount of money that they are spending on patients 2-3 weeks in hospitals. If this pandemic continues at this rate, our medical aid schemes will run into financial difficulties because they cannot really afford it. The hospitals, including private ones, are actually full right now, where people are dying because they don't have beds. I'm saying and requesting medical aid schemes to say this money that you are using to hospitalize the patients, why don't you go out to source the best medication, best vaccine out there, finance this, but don't only aim it at people who are on medical aid. make sure that you can get it for all South Africans. The only thing I'm requesting them to do is to ask the South African government to give them the permission and the mandate to go and negotiate on their own, pay for it, execute this vaccination process in private hospitals. But that does not exonerate our government from continuing with their responsibility as government to ensure that all South Africans who require the service, because obviously some people are skeptical about the vaccines, but there are those, including myself, who are ready anytime actually to take this vaccine. We must be allowed. So the medical aid schemes, I'm asking them, if ever you get the mandate from government, please ensure that the South African government stays away from any procurement processes. Because once you can involve government in the procurement process, I can assure you it has been proven over the last 26 years that you're going to get corruption, you're going to get assassinations, you're going to get all manner of criminality into it. So the only thing we want from government is government to give these schemes an opportunity or the mandate to go and source the appropriate vaccine, so that some of us that are prepared to be vaccinated can really be vaccinated.
I certainly wish I could, have the time to probe you further on that, because it doesn't look like the work of the medical aids could allow them to do that. But I'd like us to shift gears slightly to look at another issue that has been a crisis that appears to have been developing in the past, few weeks, and certainly not a new one. We've seen it quite a number of times. The Beitbridge border post continues to see quite a lot of volumes of people trying to come in, desperate situations there. It looks like it may just be a COVID-19 hotspot, if it's not already.
I'm sure South Africans are aware on the 1st of December 2016, during my 100 days as executive mayor of the city of Johannesburg, I warned South Africans about this criminality that was happening because of the criminal syndicates identifying South Africa as their center place, and brought this to the attentions of South Africans. And I'm sure you remember very well, I was attacked, insulted, called names, including actually being reported to the Human Rights Commission. And unfortunately enough, when this matter was extensively investigated by the Human Rights Commission, whatever I was articulating was what any country that is self-respecting has to really do. So this is a crisis where people have obviously felt that South Africa is a free-for-all. We're not really only sitting with problems from Zimbabweans and Malawians. How many Pakistanis do we have in this country? How many Indians do we have? We have criminals in our jails. The Krecha of Rowan Krecha, as an example, someone who's wanted by his own country. South Africa has got the money to provide such a criminal syndicate in our prison, feed him 3 times a day when we are unable to feed our own people. That's something that unfortunately chickens have come home to roast. And where's the president? In fact, the whole day I've been trying to really monitor the media to see if the president can obviously come out, because the dysfunctional state of home affairs, it's something that started some time ago. Malusi Gigaba, giving the Guptas the free passage to South Africa, giving them South African passports. But look at now the poor Zimbabweans, what is happening. And it's now going to appear as if we've got an influx only of African people. South Africa, it's actually the capital of the criminal syndicates. They've identified that working with the South African government, it's easy because they will never be punished. They have some of the best, it looks like, PR companies that will attack anyone who would raise this matter. But fortunately enough, I've taken a conscious decision. I'm going to be the last South African to be silenced to challenge this criminality that's happening in our country.
Unfortunately, that's all we have time for tonight. Thank you so much for your time tonight. That's Action SA leader Herman Mashaba.